The air in the sprawling Sentosa Cove bungalow hung thick and humid, a stifling blanket even under the shade of the vibrant bougainvillea. It was then that the scream tore through the languid afternoon peace, a high-pitched, hysterical shriek laced with venom, instantly chilling the tropical warmth. There was no warning, no precursor, just an explosion of raw hostility erupting beneath the cascade of pink flowers. Let go right now, you savage," Michelle shrieked, her perfectly sculpted face contorted by a rage that stripped away all semblance of her usual poise. Her manicured hand, adorned with a delicate diamond bracelet, closed like an iron claw around Maria's forearm. The sharp nails dug into flesh, seeking to inflict pain, seeking blood. Maria, in her crisp blue uniform and still-worn yellow rubber gloves, stumbled backward. Yet, her feet planted themselves on the polished stone pavers with a stubbornness born of pure survival instinct. Not her own, but the boys. Maria did not release the wheelchair. Her gloved fingers clung to the black metal armrest with such tenacity that her knuckles gleamed white beneath the latex. Her body instinctively formed a human shield. A fragile wall of flesh and bone interposed between the stepmother's fury and Ethan's terrified silence. "Madame, please. You are hurting him," Maria pleaded, her voice trembling with fear. Yet, she did not retreat a single millimeter. Her large, dark eyes brimmed with tears, not from the physical pain of Michelle's grip, but from the anguish of seeing Ethan shrink further into his chair. Ethan, the master's son, a 14-year-old who appeared far younger due to the atrophy in his legs and the crushing weight of an old, deep sadness, remained utterly silent. He was pale, his skin almost translucent under the golden glow of the late afternoon sun. His hands trembled on his motionless knees. His eyes darted from one woman to the other, a ping-pong ball in a deadly match. He wanted to scream. He wanted to defend the only person who smiled at him in this cold mansion, but fear had stitched his mouth shut. Michelle yanked again, this time with more violence, jolting the domestic helper's entire body. "Don't you dare tell me what I do with my family, you dirty, starving wretch." Michelle spat, leaning forward, invading Maria's personal space with her expensive perfume, which now reeked of danger. "I saw you. I saw what you were doing. You're a thief and an abuser. Isn't that right?" Maria shook her head frantically, feeling her arm burn where Michelle squeezed. "I was just adjusting his blanket. He was cold." "Lies!" Michelle let out a dry, cruel laugh. "In this climate, it's never cold. You were touching him. You were putting your filthy hands where they don't belong, looking for something to steal from the poor cripple who can't defend himself." The word cripple struck Ethan harder than any slap. The boy lowered his head, fixing his gaze on the pristine marble floor, wishing to disappear, wishing the earth would swallow him whole. Maria saw that gesture. She saw a fragment of the boy's soul shatter a little more, and that sight ignited an unexpected strength within her. With a sharp, sudden movement, Maria broke free from Michelle's grasp. It was a reflex, defensive, but the lady of the house perceived it as a declaration of war. Maria took a step back, breathing raggedly, her hands held up in a gesture of peace, showing her yellow rubber palms. "Don't touch me, Madame Michelle. You can yell at me all you want. You can fire me if you wish, but I will not let you go near Ethan when he is in such a state. Not while I still breathe." The silence that followed that defiant statement was more terrifying than the screams. Michelle stood still, straightening her back. She ran a hand through her chestnut hair, tucking a loose strand back into her perfect coiffure. Her expression morphed from fiery rage to calculating coldness. A small, almost imperceptible smile curved her lips. It was the smile of a predator who knows the prey has fallen into the trap. "Ah," Michelle whispered, her voice soft in a way that raised goosebumps on Maria's skin. "You are challenging me, Maria. You, a simple helper we picked up from the agency." Maria swallowed hard. She knew she had made a fatal error. In the world of the wealthy, the poor had no right to dignity, much less to self-defense. But she glanced at Ethan, who was watching her with a mixture of terror and adoration, and she knew she couldn't regret it. "I am only protecting the boy," Maria said, lowering her voice. "We shall see who needs protection now. We shall see." Michelle's voice was laced with chilling certainty. At that instant, the sound of heavy footsteps on the gravel driveway shattered the tense atmosphere. They were steps of authority, steps of expensive leather, and firm soles. Steps Maria knew by heart, and that usually signified security, but today they sounded like a death sentence. Mr. Tan had arrived. Michelle spun towards the sound. In a fraction of a second, her face underwent a ghastly metamorphosis. The fury vanished. The arrogance evaporated. her eyes instantly filled with artificial tears. Her shoulders slumped into a posture of absolute fragility. She clutched a hand to her chest, feigning a fright-induced tachycardia. The stage was set, and Maria, in her yellow gloves and work uniform, stood in the center, unknowingly cast as the villain. The judge and the verdict. Mr. Tan stopped 5 meters from the scene. His tall, athletic figure cast a long shadow across the garden. He had his suit jacket slung over his shoulder, his white shirt sleeves rolled up, and his tie loosened. His face bore the weariness of a man who had spent 10 hours negotiating multi-million-dollar mergers, dealing with financial sharks, yearning only to return to his haven of peace. But what he found was not peace. His dark eyes scanned the situation with laser precision. He saw his wife Michelle trembling and silently sobbing. He saw his son Ethan cowering in his wheelchair as if awaiting a blow. And he saw Maria, the domestic helper, agitated, sweaty, her chest heaving violently, standing in a position that, from his angle, appeared menacing. "What in God's name is happening here?" Mr. Tan asked. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His voice, deep and resonant, vibrated in the air with the authority of one who tolerated no argument. Michelle didn't wait. She launched herself towards him, covering those few meters with theatrical desperation and flinging herself into his arms, burying her face in his white shirt. "Alejandro, thank goodness you're here," Michelle cried, making sure her tears soaked the fabric over his chest. "I was so scared, my love. So scared." Mr. Tan instinctively wrapped an arm around his wife, but his eyes never left Maria. His gaze was a blend of confusion and a growing disappointment that stung more than hatred. "Scared? Scared of what, Michelle? Explain yourself." Michelle pulled back slightly, just enough to look into his eyes, her pupils glistening with feigned tears. She pointed a trembling finger at Maria, as if the act of pointing caused her physical pain. "Of her, Alejandro, of that woman," Michelle sobbed, taking a dramatic breath. "I came out to the garden because I heard a strange noise and I found her. I found her on top of Ethan." Maria's world stopped. She felt the blood drain from her feet. She wanted to speak. She wanted to scream that it was a lie, but her voice caught in her throat. "On top of Ethan?" Mr. Tan repeated, frowning, unable to process the image. He looked at his son. Ethan still had his head bowed, unable to meet his father's gaze. Mr. Tan interpreted that silence as shame, as trauma. "Maria, what does this mean?" She was twisting Ethan's arm. "Alejandro." Michelle interrupted, raising her voice, drowning out any attempt at defense from the helper. "She was forcing him to tell her where we keep the safe, and when I tried to stop her, she attacked me. Look!" Michelle extended her own arm, where, ironically, the force she herself had exerted pulling Maria had left a faint red mark on her sensitive skin. "She attacked me, Alejandro. That savage attacked me in my own home." Mr. Tan gently released his wife and took 2 steps towards Maria. The distance between master and helper had never seemed so abysmal as in that moment. Maria, who had always admired him for being a just man, watched as justice clouded in his eyes, replaced by the blind instinct of protection for his own. "Sir," Maria began, her voice a mere thread, joining her gloved hands in a gesture of supplication. "Mr. Tan, I swear on my life, on the memory of my mother, that is not true." "Silence!" Mr. Tan's voice was a whip. Maria's mouth snapped shut, and she flinched. Mr. Tan looked at Ethan. He needed his son to speak. He needed him to deny this madness. Maria had cared for Ethan for 2 years. She was the one who made him laugh, who cooked his favorite dishes. It made no sense, but doubt is a swift poison, and Michelle had injected it straight into his vein. "Ethan," Mr. Tan said, his voice softer but tense. "Son, look at me." Ethan slowly lifted his gaze. His eyes were filled with panic. Behind Mr. Tan, Michelle stared at him fixedly, one hand discreetly touching the pocket of her dress. Ethan knew that gesture. He knew what it meant. If he spoke, if he defended Maria, the consequences when his father went to work would be terrible. The special vitamins, as Michelle called them, would return. The darkness would return. "Ethan, did Maria hurt you?" Mr. Tan asked, desperate for an answer. The boy trembled, looked at Maria, pleading for forgiveness with his eyes. Then he looked at his father, and with infinite pain, simply shook his head very slightly, an ambiguous gesture that Mr. Tan, in his agitated state, failed to interpret. "He's in shock, Alejandro. Don't pressure him," Michelle cried, regaining control. "Look how he's trembling. That woman has terrified him. And look at this." Michelle plunged her hand into Maria's uniform pocket. It was a swift, sleight-of-hand movement. Maria, paralyzed by Mr. Tan's authority, didn't react in time. Michelle pulled her hand out triumphantly. In her fingers, she held something golden. The gold watch. The watch that had belonged to Ethan's biological mother. The most sacred relic in the house. "She had it in her apron!" Michelle shrieked, displaying the incriminating evidence. "She was stealing your late wife's watch, Alejandro. She took advantage of Ethan not being able to walk to snatch it, and then she mistreated him so he wouldn't speak." "Mister." Tan looked at the watch, gleaming in the sun. He felt a profound nausea. That object was not just gold. It was the memory of his first love, his son's mother. To see it in Michelle's hands, supposedly taken from Maria's uniform, broke something inside him. The little doubt he had left evaporated, replaced by a cold, absolute disgust. He walked towards Maria. There was no explosive anger in him now, but a glacial contempt that was 1,000 times worse. He stopped centimeters from her. Maria could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the day's sweat. She could see the veins throbbing in his neck. "I trusted you," Mr. Tan said in a low voice, each word laden with lethal disappointment. "I opened my home to you. I let you care for the most sacred thing I have. And you are a monster." "Sir, I didn't. She put it there." Maria cried openly now, thick tears rolling down her cheeks, falling onto her uniform. "It's a trap!" "Enough, Mr. Tan raised his hand as if to stop the flow of lies. "I don't want to hear another word from your filthy mouth. Take off those gloves." Maria blinked, confused by the order. "Sir, take off your gloves!" Mr. Tan roared, losing his composure for the first time. "You don't deserve to touch anything in this house. Get out!" "Leave right now before I forget I am a gentleman and drag you out myself." Mr. Tan reached out and with a sharp movement, grabbed the fingers of Maria's right glove and pulled. The latex stretched and snapped as it came off, leaving Maria's bare, humble, working hand exposed to the air. It was a gesture of supreme humiliation. He stripped her of her tool of work, of her dignity. "You have 2 minutes to disappear from my sight," Mr. Tan said, throwing the glove to the ground as if it were contaminated trash. "If I see you when I enter the house, I will call the police and make sure you rot in Changi prison for theft and assault on a minor." Michelle, behind him, hugged Ethan possessively, smiling into the boy's hair, while looking at Maria with absolute triumph. She had won. The helper was finished. Maria looked at her bare hand, looked at the glove on the ground, looked at Mr. Tan, a good man blinded by a viper, and then looked at Ethan. The boy had his eyes closed, crying silently. Something shifted within Maria. The fear of prison, the fear of unemployment, the fear of the millionaire's power. All that was still there, but it was overcome by something larger, a flare of indignation, a moral certainty. She would not leave, not like this, not leaving the boy at the mercy of that woman. If she was going to fall, she would fall fighting. If she was going to prison, she would go screaming the truth. Maria looked up, wiped her tears with the back of her bare hand, straightened her back, and for the first time looked at Mr. Tan not as a master, but as a blind man who needed to be forced to open his eyes. "Call the police, Mr. Tan," Maria said. Her voice no longer trembled. It was hard, like river stone. "Call them. Let them come. But I will not move from here until you see what your wife has hidden in her right hand behind her back." A sepulchral silence fell over the garden. Mr. Tan froze. Michelle stopped smiling, the corrosive doubt. Maria's challenge hung in the hot afternoon air, heavy and toxic. "Look at what your wife has hidden in her right hand." The phrase was not a shout. It was a sentence. And before sentences, the guilty usually tremble, even if only on the inside. Mr. Tan, who a second before was ready to drag the helper off his property, stopped. His breathing was agitated. The knot of his loosened tie felt like a phantom noose around his neck. He looked at Maria. He saw a broken woman, without gloves, her uniform stained with dirt and tears, but with a fiery gaze that did not match the profile of a thief. Thieves flee. Thieves lower their gaze. Thieves do not demand to be searched or challenge the lady of the house with such suicidal defiance. Slowly, as if his neck weighed tons, Mr. Tan turned his head towards Michelle. She had not moved, but her posture had imperceptibly changed. She was no longer the fragile victim collapsing in search of comfort. Now she was rigid, taut as a violin string about to snap. Her right hand indeed was hidden behind the folds of her designer gray skirt, pressed against her lower back, out of sight. "What is this nonsense?" Michelle blurted out with a nervous laugh that sounded too high-pitched, too brittle. "Alejandro, please, are you going to fall for this madwoman's game? She's trying to buy time." She's trying to distract you from the fact that she had your mother's watch in her pocket. Michelle took a step towards him, trying to close the distance, trying to use her physical proximity, her perfume, her touch to cloud her husband's judgment. She raised her left hand, the free one, to caress his cheek. "My love, look at Ethan," she whispered, pointing at the boy with a theatrical gesture of pain. "The poor darling is terrified by this woman's screams. Get her out of here. Call security. Don't give her the satisfaction of continuing this circus. Do it for your son, Mr." Tan looked at Ethan. The boy remained motionless in his wheelchair, but something in his father's gaze made Ethan react. The boy was not looking at Maria with fear. No, his large dark eyes were fixed on Mr. Tan, and in them there was no terror towards the helper, but a silent, desperate plea. Ethan was trying to tell him something with his gaze, something his mouth, sealed by months of psychological manipulation, dared not utter. Mr. Tan felt a shiver. He was a businessman, an expert at reading people across negotiation tables. He could detect when someone lied about a contract. How was it possible that he couldn't read what was happening in his own garden? But the doubt, that tiny seed Maria had planted, began to take violent root. He remembered the last few weeks. He remembered how Ethan was always sleeping when he came home from work. He remembered the times Michelle would tell him, "Don't bother him, darling. He had a difficult day today, and I gave him his vitamins so he could rest." He remembered his son's pallor, his apathy, his lack of appetite that doctors attributed to depression due to his condition. What if it wasn't depression? Mr. Tan took a step back, pulling away from Michelle's caress. Her hand hung in the air, rejected. "Show me your hand," Mr. Tan said. His voice sounded hoarse, unrecognizable. Michelle's face paled beneath her perfect makeup. Her eyes flashed with a mixture of panic and contained fury. "What?" she asked, feigning not to have understood. "Show me your right hand, Michelle, the one you have hidden behind your back." "This is outrageous!" she exploded, changing tactics from seduction to offended indignation. She retreated 2 steps, putting distance between them. "Are you searching me, your wife? Are you going to put the word of an ignorant helper, a thief we just caught, above my dignity? Alejandro, you are humiliating me. The only one humiliating herself is you. If you don't show me what you have there," Maria interjected. Her voice was firm, though her legs trembled. She knew her life was on the line. If Michelle managed to throw whatever she held, if she managed to hide it among the bushes, Maria would go to prison, and Ethan would be condemned. She couldn't allow it. "Let it go, madame. Let Mr. Tan see how you care for the child." "Be quiet, you insolent wretch," Michelle shrieked, turning towards Maria with a violence that made Mr. Tan blink. That was not the sweet woman he had married. That was a cornered beast. "Michelle!" Mr. Tan's voice rose in volume, thundering across the garden. "Enough! I won't repeat myself. Show me your hand. Now!" Silence fell again, heavy as a tombstone. The birds seemed to have fled the garden. Only Ethan's ragged breathing could be heard. He had begun to cry silently, large tears rolling down his pale cheeks. Michelle looked at her husband. She saw that doubt had turned into suspicion. She saw that the victim role no longer worked. Her calculating mind worked at 1,000 miles an hour. She needed an exit. She needed to dispose of the evidence. "Fine," Michelle said in a glacial voice, lifting her chin arrogantly. "If you distrust me so much, if you prefer to believe the servant, then I'm leaving. I'm not staying here to be insulted. I'm going to my room and packing my bags. Clearly, this marriage was a mistake if there's no trust." Michelle turned abruptly, trying to walk towards the house, keeping her right hand hidden against her side, protected by the angle of her hip. It was a clever move. It was a chess play designed to make Mr. Tan feel guilty and at the same time give her the opportunity to throw the object into the first toilet she found. But Maria was not a chess piece. Maria was a mother in spirit, and mothers do not let the wolf escape. "Don't let her go," Maria cried, breaking protocol, breaking rules, breaking everything. "If she goes into the house, she'll throw it away." "Sir, stop her." Mr. Tan didn't think. He acted. The paternal instinct, which had been dormant under layers of work and stress, suddenly awoke at the urgency in the helper's voice. "Michelle, stop," he commanded. Michelle didn't stop. She quickened her pace, her heels clattering urgently on the stone path. Mr. Tan ran. It took 3 long, powerful strides. He caught his wife just before she reached the arch of flowers, separating the garden from the terrace. He grabbed her left arm, forcing her to turn. "I told you to stop." "Let me go." "You're hurting me." Michelle screamed, struggling, writhing like a trapped snake. "Show me your hand," Mr. Tan roared. The scene was grotesque. The elegant millionaire wrestling with his wife in the middle of a dream garden. The facade of the perfect family crumbled, brick by brick, scream by scream. And in the midst of it all, the truth struggled to emerge. The truth in the palm of a hand. The struggle lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like hours. Michelle fought with surprising strength, a force born of pure desperation. She kicked, trying to hit Mr. Tan, trying to bite him if necessary. There was no elegance left, only wild panic. "No, you have no right," she shrieked, her face flushed, the veins in her neck prominent. Mr. Tan, horrified by his wife's resistance, felt his heart turn to ice. If she had nothing to hide, she would have opened her hand minutes ago. If she were innocent, she would have slapped him and shown him an empty palm. But she fought. She fought as if her life depended on it, and that confirmed Mr. Tan's worst fears. Maria was right. With a mixture of disgust and determination, Mr. Tan trapped Michelle's right wrist. She clenched her fist with all her might, her knuckles white, her nails digging into her own flesh. "Open it," he shouted, using his superior strength to immobilize her. "You brute. I hate you," Michelle spat. "Mr." Tan squeezed. He didn't want to hurt her, but he needed to know. He pressed the tendons of her wrist, a pressure point that forced her fingers to yield. "For God's sake, open it." Michelle's fingers began to tremble. Her physical resistance reached its limit. With a groan of frustration and rage, her hand yielded. Her fingers opened spasmodically. Time seemed to slow. From Michelle's sweaty palm fell two objects. They didn't fall quickly. They seemed to float in the dense afternoon air before impacting against the stone slabs of the path. Clack, cling. The sound was minuscule, but in the sudden silence of the garden, it resonated like a cannon shot. Everyone looked at the ground. There, shining under the golden sun, was a small, empty syringe, its needle still damp with a transparent drop, and next to it, a small amber glass vial, without a commercial label, filled with a cloudy liquid. "Mister." Tan released Michelle as if she burned him. He took a step back, looking at the objects on the ground with wide, disbelieving eyes. His mind struggled to process what he saw, trying to find a logical, benign explanation. "It's insulin," he thought absurdly. "It's migraine medicine." But Maria shattered the bubble of denial. Maria dropped to her knees, not before her employers, but before the evidence, pointing to it with her bare hand. "There it is," Maria sobbed, her voice broken by relief and pain. "There is Master Ethan's sleep." Mr. Tan looked up at Maria, stunned. "What is that?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It's a sedative, sir. Sedative for horses, or worse," Maria said, still staring at the vial. "I know because I found one just like it in the trash last week. I heard her. I heard her talking on the phone, saying the dose was enough to keep him calm and quiet until you came back from your trip." "Mister." Tan felt the world spin. He looked at Michelle. She stood, massaging her wrist, breathing heavily. Her mask had completely fallen. There was no fear on her face now, only a defensive coldness, the look of someone discovered who decided it was no longer worth pretending. "Explain it," Mr. Tan said. He didn't shout. His tone was one of deadly calm, the calm before the hurricane. Michelle adjusted her dress, lifted her chin. If she was going to fall, she would fall with haughtiness. "You're exaggerating, Alejandro," she said in a tone that tried to regain normalcy, as if they were discussing the dinner menu. "It's natural medicine, homeopathy. Ethan is a very nervous, very difficult child. He gets hysterical when you're not here. I only give him something to calm him, so he doesn't suffer. I do it for him." "For him!" Mr. Tan looked at the syringe on the ground. The needle gleamed with lethal menace. "You inject homeopathy into my son? It's faster that way," she replied, shrugging. "He spits out pills. Don't look at me like that. You're not here all day. You don't have to put up with his whining, his depressive silence. It's exhausting, Alejandro. I do all this to keep this house peaceful for you. Leah." The shout didn't come from Maria. It came from the wheelchair. Mr. Tan and Michelle spun around. Ethan, the boy who barely whispered, had propelled himself forward. His hands gripped the wheels of his chair with a newfound strength. His face was drenched in tears, but his expression was one of pure, adolescent, painful rage. "Ethan?" Mr. Tan whispered. "Liar!" Ethan repeated, his voice cracking. "It's not medicine. It makes me feel dizzy. It makes me forget things. It makes me unable to move." The boy began to pull at the sleeve of his beige t-shirt. With clumsy, desperate movements, He rolled the fabric up to his shoulder. "Look, Dad," Ethan cried, extending his thin arm towards Mr. Tan. "Look what she does to me!" Mr. Tan walked towards his son like a sleepwalker. He knelt beside the chair, his eyes fixed on Ethan's arm. What he saw broke his soul into 1,000 irreparable pieces. The boy's pale arm was a map of pain. There were old bruises, greenish and yellowish. There were marks of small, cruel pinches on the inner arm, where the skin is most sensitive. And there were red dots, puncture marks. 1, 2, 3, 5 recent punctures. Mr. Tan touched his son's arm with trembling fingers. The skin was cold. Ethan flinched at the contact but didn't pull away. He let his father touch him, seeking protection. "She told me if I told you, you would leave forever," Ethan whispered, looking into his father's eyes. "She told me you wanted a pretty wife, not a crippled son who causes problems. She told me if I misbehaved, you would send me to a boarding school where no one would visit me." Mr. Tan closed his eyes. A solitary tear, hot and heavy, escaped from his tightly shut eyelids. The pain in his chest was physical, an emotional infarction. He had been blind. He had been so busy building an empire, buying this mansion, buying those dresses for Michelle, believing he was providing for his family, that he had let the wolf into the den. He had left his son defenseless against a monster, disguised as an angel. He opened his eyes. There were no more tears, only a terrible darkness in his gaze. He stood up slowly, turning his back on Ethan and Maria, and faced Michelle. Michelle recoiled. For the first time, she felt real fear, not fear of being discovered, but physical fear. Mr. Tan was a peaceful man, but the look he had now was that of a man capable of killing with his bare hands. "Alejandro, wait, let me explain. The boy invents things. You know how his imagination is," Michelle stammered, backing away until she bumped into a flower column. "No." Mr. Tan's voice was dry, cutting. "Don't speak. Don't ever utter my son's name with your mouth again, Mr. Tan bent down and picked up the gold watch Michelle had earlier produced from Maria's pocket. He wiped it with his shirt, removing his wife's fingerprints. Then he walked towards Maria. The helper was still on her knees, exhausted by adrenaline. Mr. Tan extended a hand to her, not to give an order, not to point. He extended his hand to help her up. "Get up, Maria," he said in a soft voice. The first time he had used that tone with her in years. "Please, get up." Maria took the millionaire's hand, her rough, working hand against his smooth, cared-for one. He pulled her up gently, helping her to her feet. "Forgive me," Mr. Tan said, looking into her eyes, ignoring Michelle, who watched the scene stunned. "Forgive me for having been so blind. Forgive me for having humiliated you when you were the only one protecting my own flesh and blood." Then Mr. Tan turned towards Michelle. His posture straightened. He seemed to grow 10 centimeters. "It's over, Michelle." "What?" She blinked incredulously. "Alejandro, you can't be serious. Over a misunderstanding, over the lies of a sick child and a helper. I am your wife." "You were my wife," he corrected, advancing towards her step by step, forcing her to retreat towards the garden exit. "Now you are a stranger, and I want you out of my house right now." "You can't kick me out," she screamed, regaining her hysteria. "I have rights. I have lawyers. This is my house too." "This house belongs to my son," Mr. Tan said, with a coldness that chilled the blood. "And you are the danger that lives in it. You have 5 minutes. You won't pack. You won't take the jewelry I bought you. You won't take the car. You will leave with only what you are wearing, and you will thank God I don't break your neck myself. Alejandro, out." Mr. Tan's shout was so potent that the bougainvillea flowers seemed to tremble. Michelle looked around. She looked at Ethan, who watched her with a mixture of fear and hope. She looked at Maria, who stood beside the boy, her hand on Ethan's shoulder, reclaiming her place as protector. And she looked at Mr. Tan, who was an impenetrable stone wall. She knew she had lost. The game was over. With a shriek of frustration, Michelle spun around and ran. She ran towards the house, not to pack, but to flee the judgmental gaze of that man. But Mr. Tan wasn't finished. "Maria," he called. "Yes, sir?" "Call the police," Mr. Tan said, still watching his fleeing wife's back. "And call my lawyer. I want her charged with aggravated child abuse and possession of illegal substances. I'm going to make sure she never comes near another child in her life." Maria nodded, tears of righteous justice in her eyes. "Yes, sir. Right away." Mr. Tan knelt again beside Ethan. He hugged his son. It was a clumsy, desperate embrace, filled with guilt and love. Ethan clung to his father's neck and burst into tears. But this time they were tears of liberation. The monster was gone. But the story didn't end there. The damage was done, and wounds of the soul take longer to heal than bruises on the skin. Mr. Tan looked at Maria over his son's shoulder. There was gratitude in his eyes, but also a silent question. How do we fix this now? The true journey of redemption had just begun. The collapse of the Crystal Kingdom. Michelle ran towards the mansion as if pursued by demons, though the only real demon was the truth nipping at her heels. Her heels echoed on the marble of the foyer, an erratic, desperate sound that shattered the house's sepulchral silence. There was no trace left of the society lady who hosted charity galas. Now she was a marauder in her own home. She ascended the stairs 2 at a time, tripping over her designer dress, cursing under her breath with words that would make a sailor blush. She burst into the master bedroom, that sanctuary of coldness and luxury she shared with Mr. Tan, and launched herself directly towards the walk-in closet. She wasn't looking for clothes. She was looking for the safe hidden behind the mirror. With trembling hands, she punched in the combination. 1, 2, 3 failed attempts. Panic clouded her vision. "Damn it, open, you piece of garbage!" she screamed, hitting the digital panel with her clenched fist. Finally, the green light blinked, and the steel door yielded with a click. Michelle pounced on the contents. She ignored the documents, property deeds, contracts. Her claws went straight for the velvet cases and the emergency wads of cash Mr. Tan kept. She stuffed her pockets, her cleavage, cramming diamond necklaces into her handbag without bothering to close them, clutching the jewels as if they were lifelines in a shipwreck. "Is that all you care about?" Mr. Tan's voice froze her. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, filling the frame with an ominous presence. He wasn't agitated. He wasn't shouting. He looked at her with the scientific curiosity of someone observing a cockroach writhing before being crushed. Michelle spun around, hugging the handbag to her chest, a pearl necklace grotesquely dangling from her mouth. "It's my money," she spat, letting the pearls drop to the floor. "You owe me for the years of youth I wasted in this boring house, taking care of that nuisance of a son you have. I earned it." Mr. Tan slowly entered the room. Each step he took made Michelle retreat until she hit the wall. He looked at the disarray, the open drawers, the strewn clothes, the naked, ugly greed spread across the floor. "I gave you everything, mister," Tan said with a calm that was more frightening than any scream. "I gave you my name, my house, my trust. And in return, you tortured my son, you drugged him, you hit him." "It was necessary," she shrieked, her eyes wide. "You weren't here. You didn't have to see how he looked at me." "That child hates me. He looked at me as if I were an intruder. I needed him to shut up, to stop being a burden. The only burden here was always you," Mr. Tan replied. At that moment, the sound of sirens flooded the entrance of the house. Blue and red lights began to dance on the bedroom walls, filtering through the curtains, painting the scene with a police urgency. Michelle ran to the window. She saw 2 patrol cars parking abruptly on the gravel. She saw officers getting out with their weapons drawn, alerted by the seriousness of Maria's call. "No." Michelle turned to Mr. Tan, her arrogance collapsing in a second. "Alejandro, please, you can't let them take me. Think of the scandal, your reputation, the company's shares. They'll say your wife is a criminal." Mr. Tan let out a dry, humorless laugh. "My reputation means nothing to me, Michelle. I'd rather be the city's laughingstock than spend another second protecting you." Heavy footsteps of the police ascended the stairs. Michelle tried to run to the bathroom to lock herself in, but Mr. Tan blocked her path. He didn't touch her. He simply stood in front of her, and his look of contempt was an impassable wall. "Hands up, police!" an officer shouted, entering the room, pointing at Michelle. She dropped the handbag. The jewels fell to the floor with a ridiculous clatter. Gold chains, rings, wads of cash, all scattered at her feet. A carpet of useless vanity. "It's a mistake," Michelle cried, as the officer roughly turned her against the wall to handcuff her. "I'm the lady of the house. That helper set me up. Alejandro, tell them something." Mr. Tan looked at the officer. "Take her away. She has illegal drugs in her possession, and there is physical evidence of severe child abuse on my son. My lawyer will deliver the evidence to the police station in an hour." "You bastard!" Michelle screamed, as she was dragged out of the room. She writhed. She lost her shoes. Her perfect hairstyle came undone. She was no longer the queen of the mansion. She was just a pathetic criminal screaming insults as she was removed from her palace of lies. "You'll regret this. Without me, you're nothing. That crippled child will ruin your life." Her screams faded down the hallway, down the stairs, until the slam of the patrol car door put an end to the noise. Mr. Tan remained alone in the bedroom. Silence returned, but now it was different. The house felt enormous, empty, and cold. He looked at the matrimonial bed where he had slept with that woman, believing he loved her. He felt nauseous. He violently yanked the sheets off and threw them to the floor. He couldn't bear to see anything she had touched. He walked to the window and looked out at the garden. Below, dusk was beginning to fall, painting the sky in shades of violet and orange. There, by the bougainvillea, two figures remained motionless. Maria was kneeling beside the wheelchair, buttoning Ethan's shirt, tidying his clothes with infinite tenderness. Ethan was not crying. His head rested on the helper's shoulder, seeking peace. Mr. Tan leaned his forehead against the cold glass. He had all the money in the world, but at that moment he realized he was the poorest man on earth. The woman he paid to clean his floors was the only one who had acted as a mother. And he, the great entrepreneur, the visionary, had been nothing more than a blind, absent figure. He lowered his head and wept. Not the restrained tears from before, but an ugly, raw sob that shook his shoulders. He wept for lost time. He wept for his son's pain. He wept because he knew kicking Michelle out was the easy part. The difficult part began now. He had to repair what was broken, and no check could pay for that. He wiped his face with his shirt sleeve, took a deep breath, and turned around. He had to go downstairs. He had to face his son. He had to stop being Mr. Tan and start being Dad. And he was terrified because he didn't know if Ethan would allow him to get close. The lesson in humility. When Mr. Tan returned to the garden, the sun had almost completely set. The automatic path lights had come on, casting long shadows over the lawn. The air had cooled, bringing with it the humid aroma of the tropical night. Maria and Ethan hadn't moved. They seemed like a living statue of piety, the humble woman protecting the broken child. Hearing Mr. Tan's footsteps on the gravel, Ethan visibly tensed. His hand sought Maria's and squeezed it tightly. That gesture, that instinctive rejection of his father and the search for refuge in the helper, pierced Mr. Tan's heart like a spear. Mr. Tan stopped at a safe distance. He didn't want to intrude. He still felt like an outsider in his own family. "She's gone," Mr. Tan said, his voice hoarse. "The police took her. She'll never come back, Ethan, I promise you." Ethan didn't respond. He looked at his own hands, twirling an imaginary ring. Maria looked up. Her eyes were swollen, but her expression was one of steely calm. There was no fear in her anymore, only her mission. There was a newfound dignity earned on the battlefield. "The boy is exhausted, sir," Maria said in a low voice. "He's shivering from cold and hunger. He needs a warm bath and something light to eat." Strong emotions upset his stomach. Mr. Tan nodded quickly, anxious to be useful, to do anything, whatever it took. "Yes, of course. Let's go inside. I'll carry him." Mr. Tan approached the wheelchair with the intention of pushing it towards the access ramp. But when his hands touched the rubber handles, Ethan let out a choked whimper and recoiled, covering his head with his arms. "No," the boy whispered, terrified. Mr. Tan withdrew his hands as if the chair were burning. "Son, it's me. It's Dad. I just want to take you to your room." "You don't know how," Ethan murmured, his voice cracking. "You'll hit me on the door frames. You always go too fast." The confession was a brutal blow. Mr. Tan remembered the few times he had pushed the chair, always in a hurry, always on the phone, bumping the wheels against furniture, treating his son like a suitcase to be transported from point A to point B. He stood paralyzed, hands in the air, feeling useless, clumsy, giant, and dangerous. Maria gently stood up. She didn't ask permission, she simply took control, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. "Let me, sir," she said softly. "Ethan has a routine. If we change it now, he'll get more nervous." Maria took the handles. Her touch was different. Before moving the chair, she leaned towards Ethan's ear. "Ethan, my love, let's go inside. I'll make that hot Milo you like, okay? And we'll put on some soft music. No one will hurt you. Your dad will come with us. He'll open the doors for us, okay?" Ethan nodded slowly, relaxing his shoulders. "Okay, Maria." Mr. Tan watched the scene with a mixture of admiration and profound shame. Maria maneuvered the chair with a skill that resembled a dance. She avoided imperfections in the path, smoothed the turns. Mr. Tan walked ahead to open the main door, holding it open like a doorman, watching his son and the woman who had saved him pass by. They entered the kitchen. It was an enormous space of stainless steel and white marble, cold as an operating room. But Maria transformed it. In a matter of seconds, she boiled water, took a blanket from a hidden cupboard, and covered Ethan's legs. Mr. Tan stood by the central island, feeling like a stranger. He wanted to help, but he didn't know where the cups were. He didn't know what kind of milk his son drank. He knew nothing. "Sit down, Mr. Tan," Maria said, without stopping her movements, stirring the Milo with rhythm. "Please, you make the boy nervous if you stand there like a ghost." Mr. Tan obeyed. He sat on a high stool opposite his son. Ethan was on the other side of the table, watching the steam rise from the mug Maria had just placed in front of him. "Maria," Mr. Tan began, then paused. He needed to ask. He needed to understand. "Why did you stay?" "Maria, you knew what was happening. Michelle treated you like dirt. I ignored you. I paid you minimum wage. You could have gone anywhere else. Why did you stay, enduring this hell?" Maria looked at Ethan, who was drinking his Milo eagerly, slowly regaining color in his cheeks. Then she looked at Mr. Tan, and her dark eyes shone with a simple, devastating truth. "Because one day, 6 months ago, I went into the boy's room to clean. He was crying in the dark. I went closer, and he grabbed my hand. He told me, 'Please, don't leave me alone. I'm scared.'" Maria paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I have a son, Mr. Tan. He's in my hometown with my grandmother. I haven't seen him in 2 years because I'm here working to send him money. When Ethan grabbed my hand, I saw my own son, and I promised before God that if I couldn't care for my own, I would care for yours as if he were my own flesh and blood. Because no child deserves to live in fear in their own home. Money doesn't buy peace, sir, and I couldn't sleep peacefully knowing that if I left, this angel would be alone with that witch." Mr. Tan lowered his gaze, ashamed to his core. He, who believed his duty as a father ended with signing cheques for school and therapies, had just received the greatest moral lesson of his life. A woman who had sacrificed raising her own child to save his. "I don't know how to repay you for this," Mr. Tan whispered. "It's not about repayment, sir," Maria replied, returning to her task of cleaning the kitchen, uncomfortable with the praise. "It's about being there. Being there. Yes, being there." Maria nodded towards Ethan. "He doesn't need you to buy him another video game console. He needs you to know how to bathe him without hurting his back. He needs you to know what nightmares he has. He needs you to learn how to exercise his legs until he can use them, or even if he never uses them again." Mr. Tan looked at his son. Ethan had finished his Milo and was looking at him expectantly. There was an open door in that gaze. An opportunity. Mr. Tan stood up, took off his $3,000 suit jacket and let it drop onto a chair. He rolled up the sleeves of his white shirt to his elbows. "Teach me," Mr. Tan said, looking at Maria. "Teach me how to bathe him. Teach me how to put him to bed. Teach me everything. I'm not going to sleep until I learn how to care for my son." Maria smiled for the first time all afternoon. A tired but genuine smile that lit up her humble face. "All right, boss. But first, take off those noisy leather shoes that wake up the echoes in the house. Here, we move slowly." Mr. Tan nodded, bent down, untied his laces, took off his expensive shoes, and stood in his socks on the cold floor. He felt vulnerable, ridiculous, and for the first time in years, completely honest. "Come on, Ethan," Mr. Tan said, approaching the chair with slow movements, imitating what he had seen Maria do. "Let's get you ready for bed. You tell me if I do it wrong, okay? You're the boss now." Ethan smiled shyly. "Okay, Dad, but be careful with my right foot. That one hurts more." "I'll be careful, I swear." Maria watched them leave the kitchen, the father pushing the chair awkwardly, but with infinite care, the son giving instructions in a low voice. She remained alone for a moment, breathing in the silence of the liberated house. She knew the war was over, but the reconstruction would be long. And she, the general in a helper's uniform, was ready to lead the work. The night of the demons. The mansion, which by day seemed a palace of light, transformed as night fell into a cavern of elongated shadows and heavy silences. But the silence didn't last long. At 3 a.m., a tearing scream shattered the stillness of the second-floor hallway. It wasn't the cry of a common child's nightmare. It was the wail of a body at war with itself. Mr. Tan, who had fallen asleep in an uncomfortable chair beside Ethan's bed, sprang awake, his heart hammering against his ribs like a drum. The bedside lamp was on, casting a sickly yellow light on the scene. Ethan writhed amidst the sheets, soaked in cold sweat, his fragile, thin body arched in violent spasms. His eyes were wide, staring at things that weren't there. Hallucinations caused by the abrupt withdrawal from the sedatives Michelle had injected him with for months. "No. Get them off me. They're itchy. They're burning, Ethan screamed, scratching his arms frantically, reopening the scabs of old injections. Ethan, wake up! Mr. Tan lunged at him, trying to hold his hands to stop him from hurting himself. But the boy's strength was supernatural, born of chemical panic. Son, it's me. It's Dad. You're not you, you're her. Go away, witch! Ethan lashed out with a blind kick that struck Mr. Tan's chest, knocking the air out of him for a second. Mr. Tan staggered back, terrified. He had never seen anything like this. In his business world, problems were solved with calls, with lawyers, with money. But this was a biological hell against which his credit card had no power. Panic seized him. He fumbled for his phone with trembling hands. He was going to call an ambulance, the best private hospital, the head of neurology in the city. He was going to pay whatever it took to sedate his son and stop his suffering. Just as he was about to dial, the bedroom door burst open. Maria entered. She wasn't wearing her uniform, but a worn cotton bathrobe, her hair loose, cascading over her shoulders like a black waterfall. There was no fear on her face. There was determination. Don't call anyone, Maria ordered, seeing the phone in Mr. Tan's hand. Her voice cut the air sharper than a knife. He's having a seizure. He needs a doctor, Mr. Tan cried desperately. Look at him. He needs to detox. Maria crossed the room and snatched the phone from Mr. Tan's hand, throwing it onto the bed. If you take him to the hospital, they'll fill him with more chemicals to calm him. His body is screaming because it lacks the drug. It has to come out, sir. The poison has to come out. Maria climbed onto the bed, disregarding hierarchies or social norms. She positioned herself behind Ethan, trapping him in a containing embrace, wrapping her strong arms around the boy's chest, immobilizing him against her own body. Let go of me! Ethan howled, crying, drooling, completely out of his mind. Shh, it's okay, my darling, it's okay, Maria whispered into the boy's ear, swaying rhythmically back and forth. She wasn't fighting him. She was accompanying him through the storm. Let it out, Ethan. Scream it all out. Maria is here. Maria is here. Mister. Tan stood frozen at the foot of the bed, feeling like a useless spectator to his own son's agony. Seeing Ethan like this, reduced to a frightened, pained animal because of his father's negligence, was the most brutal punishment Mr. Tan could have received. What do I do? Mr. Tan asked, his voice broken, tears streaming freely down his face. Maria, for God's sake, tell me what to do. I can't watch him suffer like this. Maria looked up. Her hair was disheveled, and there was a line of blood on her lip where Ethan had accidentally hit her with his head. But her eyes were beacons in the storm. Bring cold water cloths. He has a fever. And bring a bucket. He's going to vomit. And then, after that, sit here and hold his hand. Don't let go, even if he screams at you, even if he hits you. Let him know you are here in the dark. Mr. Tan ran. He ran to the bathroom as if his life depended on it. He filled the sink, wet towels, looked for the bucket. He didn't call the night staff. He didn't want witnesses. This was his penance. When he returned, Ethan was dry heaving, painfully. Maria held his forehead with infinite tenderness, wiping his mouth with the edge of her own robe. Mr. Tan knelt beside the bed, placed the cold cloths on his son's burning forehead. Ethan flinched, but the cold seemed to bring him back to reality for a second. His eyes, glassy and red, focused on Mr. Tan. Dad, Ethan whimpered, his voice small and raspy. It hurts. Everything hurts. I feel bugs inside my bones. Mr. Tan felt his soul break. He grabbed Ethan's hand. It was cold and sweaty, but he squeezed it tightly. I know, champion, I know. It's the bad medicine coming out. You have to be strong. Hold on a little longer. I won't leave you. I'm scared. Me too, Mr. Tan confessed, kissing his son's knuckles. I'm scared too, Ethan. But I'm not leaving. Look at me. I'm here. I won't move an inch. Hours passed. They were the longest hours of Mr. Tan's life. Ethan vomited bile until he was exhausted. He cried until he had no voice left. There were moments when Mr. Tan thought the boy wouldn't resist, that his heart would stop beating from the effort. But Maria was there like a rock. She gave him sips of sugar water, sang old lullabies softly, massaged his cramped legs. And Mr. Tan learned. He learned to clean his son's vomit without disgust. He learned to change sheets with the child on top of them. He learned that love isn't buying expensive toys, but holding a bucket while another human being suffers. Near dawn, the fever broke. Ethan's body stopped trembling and relaxed into a deep, natural sleep, the first in months. The room fell silent, smelling of illness and confinement, but also of victory. Mr. Tan slumped to the floor, his back against the wall, exhausted. Every muscle ached. His silk shirt was ruined, stained and wrinkled. Maria carefully got off the bed so as not to wake Ethan. She adjusted her bathrobe, walked towards Mr. Tan and, without a word, sat on the floor beside him, maintaining a respectful but close distance. "You did well, boss," she whispered. Mr. Tan turned his head to look at her. In the grayish light of dawn entering through the window, Maria looked tired, with deep circles under her eyes, but beautiful. In a way Mr. Tan had never noticed before. It wasn't Michelle's plastic, made-up beauty. It was a real human beauty, forged in compassion. "You saved him," Mr. Tan said. "I just passed you the towels. You are his father. Your voice was what brought him back when he was hallucinating. He needed to know that you weren't disgusted by him, that you weren't afraid of his pain." Mr. Tan looked at his own hands. "All my life I thought being a father was providing, that if they lacked nothing material, I was fulfilling my duty." Mr. Tan ran his hands over his face, rubbing his eyes. "I almost killed him, Maria. I let that woman in here and almost killed him with my indifference. The almost is what matters, sir. Today begins anew. The past cannot be erased, but it can be repaired." They sat in silence for a moment, sharing the fatigue of the battle won. Maria. "Yes, thank you." Mr. Tan looked intensely into her eyes. "I don't know what I would have done without you tonight. I probably would have called doctors. They would have sedated him, and the cycle would have started again. You broke the cycle." Maria smiled faintly and stood up, dusting off her bathrobe. "I'm going to make coffee, sir. It's going to be a long day. You need strength." Mr. Tan watched her leave the room and felt, for the first time in years, that this immense, cold house was starting to feel vaguely like a home. He poured himself a glass of water and raised it to the air. "To new beginnings," he said aloud. He knew Ethan's rehabilitation would be long and arduous, but now he had an army, and he had a reason to fight. The sacrifice of gold. Morning arrived with a raw, unforgiving light. Mr. Tan had not slept more than 20 minutes. He sat in the kitchen with a cup of black coffee in his hands, watching the steam rise. He wore the same clothes from the night before. He hadn't shaved. Ethan was still sleeping upstairs, watched over by Maria. The silence of the kitchen was violently interrupted by the buzzing of Mr. Tan's phone on the marble countertop. Mr. Tan looked at it with hatred. The screen lit up with a name, Roberto, partner. He ignored it. The phone stopped ringing and immediately started again. Once, twice, 3 times. It was insistent, urgent, demanding. It was the sound of his old life claiming its prisoner. Finally, Mr. Tan answered, putting it on speaker, unwilling to lift the device to his ear. "Where the hell are you, Alejandro?" Roberto's voice barked from the other end, full of stress and office background noise. "The meeting with the Japanese investors started 10 minutes ago. They're furious. If you don't show up in half an hour with the signed contract, the merger falls through. We're talking about $50 million, Alejandro." Mr. Tan looked out the kitchen window. He saw the garden where the tragedy had occurred yesterday. He saw the bougainvillea. He saw the spare wheelchair folded in a corner. "I'm not coming," Mr. Tan said. His voice sounded calm, strangely serene for someone who was throwing a fortune away. "What?" There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. "Are you drunk, Alejandro? Listen to me carefully. If you don't come, they'll sue you for breach of contract. You'll lose your seat on the board. You'll lose bonuses. You'll lose millions. Move your ass and get here right now." At that moment, Maria entered the kitchen. She carried a tray with breakfast for Ethan, but she stopped, hearing the shouts coming from the phone. She looked at Mr. Tan with concern, perfectly understanding what was happening. She knew that was her boss's world, the world that gave him power, the world that paid the bills. She expected him to get up, put on his suit, and rush out as he always had. Mr. Tan saw Maria. He saw her lower her gaze, assuming he would leave, assuming money always won. Mr. Tan picked up the phone. "Roberto," he said firmly, "you listen to me. My son had a crisis last night. He almost died. He needs me. Today I have to help him bathe. I have to be there when he wakes up so he's not scared." "Hire a nurse then," Roberto shouted. "That's why you're rich. Pay someone and come do your job." That phrase was the trigger. Pay someone. The same logic that almost destroyed Ethan. The same logic that brought Michelle into their lives. Mr. Tan felt a cold anger rise in his throat, but he also felt an absolute liberation. "No," Mr. Tan said. "You can't pay a father, Roberto. I resign. What? You heard me. Do the merger yourself. If the Japanese leave, let them. If the board wants to fire me, let them. Sell my shares if necessary. I don't care. I'm not coming today, or tomorrow, or next week. My son needs me, and I'm not trading a minute with him for all the money in the bank. Don't call me again. Mr. Tan hung up. And not only did he hang up, with a fluid movement, he turned off the phone and slid it across the countertop until it gently nudged against the fruit bowl, out of his reach. Silence returned to the kitchen, but this time it was not a tense silence. It was a sacred silence. Maria looked at him with wide eyes, holding the tray with trembling hands. She had heard everything. She had heard a powerful man renounce his empire for a broken child. "Sir," she murmured. "It was $50 million. Mr. Tan spun on the stool and looked at her. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair and smiled, a tired but light smile, as if he had shed a lead armor. "It's paper, Maria, just green paper. Ethan is flesh and blood. Last night, when he held my hand, I understood that he doesn't know how much I have in the bank. He doesn't care if I'm the CEO or the gardener. He just wanted his dad not to let go, and I almost missed that chasing shadows." Maria placed the tray on the table and took a step towards him. The invisible barrier between boss and helper had thinned so much it had almost disappeared. What remained were two human beings, united by love for a third. "You are a good man, Alejandro," she said. It was the first time she had called him by his name without the sir preceding it. It slipped out, or perhaps it was intentional. It sounded sweet, intimate. Mr. Tan felt a strange warmth in his chest, hearing his name on her lips. It wasn't flattery, it was recognition. "I'm trying to be," he replied, lowering his voice. "But I don't know anything, Maria. Now I have all the time in the world, but I don't know how to fill that time. I'm afraid Ethan will wake up, and now that he has no drugs in his body, he'll realize he hates his father." Maria sighed and took a sip of tea. She put the cup down and looked at Mr. Tan with a depth that disarmed him. "Because I also carry guilt, sir, a guilt that eats me alive every day." Mr. Tan frowned, confused. "You? What could you be guilty of? You are a saint." "I am no saint." Maria shook her head, and a shadow of pain crossed her face. "I told you I have a son, right? His name is Alex. He's 8 years old. The last time I saw him, he was crying, clinging to my grandmother's skirt because I was getting on the bus to come here." Maria paused, struggling with the lump in her throat. "I came here to give him a better life, to send him money for his books, for his shoes. But every time I hug Ethan, every time I heal Ethan's wounds, I feel like I'm stealing that hug from my own son. I feel like I'm taking care of the boss's son, while mine grows up without a mother." A solitary tear rolled down her cheek. "So no, Alejandro, I'm not perfect. I care for Ethan desperately, because it's the only way to forgive myself for having left Alex. When I save Ethan, I feel like I'm saving my son from a distance." The silence that followed was dense, charged with a painful intimacy. Mr. Tan was stunned. He had always seen Maria as the savior, the strong one, the one who needed nothing. He had never stopped to think about the personal cost of her sacrifice. She had left her son to save his. Mr. Tan felt something break inside his chest, but this time it wasn't something bad. It was the final wall separating their worlds. He stretched his hand across the table, hesitated for a second, and then gently covered Maria's hand with his own. Her skin was warm. "Bring him," Mr. Tan said. Maria looked up, confused, not withdrawing her hand. "What?" "Bring Alex," Mr. Tan repeated firmly. "Bring him here to this house." "Sir, I can't. Children are not allowed here." "And this is my house," Mr. Tan interrupted, gently squeezing her hand. "And the rules have changed. I don't want you to keep sacrificing your family for mine. There's plenty of space. Ethan needs a friend. You need your son. And I need to stop being the boss who just signs checks and start being the man who helps the people who matter to him." Maria looked at him with wide eyes, incredulous. "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious in my life. Tomorrow morning we send the driver for him and your grandmother. Let them all come, let them fill this house with noise, let them eat at this table." Mr. Tan leaned forward, his eyes shining with fierce determination. "You have taught me that money is worthless if it doesn't serve to bring people together. Let me use my damn money to do something good for the first time. Let me bring you your son." Maria burst into tears. It wasn't a sad cry, but a cry of relief, of a burden of years suddenly vanishing. She put her free hand to her mouth, sobbing. Thank you, Alejandro." Mr. Tan didn't withdraw his hand. They stayed like that, united by touch in the silent kitchen, as the rain beat outside. At that moment, Mr. Tan knew there was no turning back. He was not only saving his son, he was building a new family, a strange, patched-up family, stitched with scars and hope. And looking at Maria, her eyes shining with tears and gratitude, Mr. Tan felt something that scared him more than financial ruin. He felt he could fall in love with her, not the helper, but the woman who had just saved his life for the second time that night. "Now go to sleep," he whispered, slowly withdrawing his hand, feeling the loss of contact. "Tomorrow we have to prepare the house. Alex is coming soon." Maria nodded, wiped her tears, and stood up. Before leaving the kitchen, she stopped at the doorway and turned. "Good night, Alejandro. Rest well." When she disappeared down the hallway, Mr. Tan was left alone in the kitchen, but the house no longer felt empty. It felt full of promises. He poured himself a glass of water and toasted the air. "To new beginnings," he said aloud. He knew Ethan's path to rehabilitation would be long and tortuous, but now he had an army, and he had a reason to fight. The emotional climax. The miracle of the ball. The day Alex, Maria's son, arrived, the sun blazed with an intensity that seemed to mock everyone's nerves in the mansion. Mr. Tan had sent his personal armored SUV, the one he usually used for meetings with ministers, to pick up an 8-year-old boy and an elderly grandmother from the bus interchange. Ethan was on the porch, seated in his wheelchair. He wore a new t-shirt, and his hair was slicked back with gel, a touching attempt to look cool for the stranger who was about to arrive. His hands, however, betrayed his anxiety. They rubbed the armrests of the chair until they shone. "What if he doesn't like me?" Ethan whispered, not looking at Maria. Maria, who stood behind him, placed a hand on his shoulder. She was nervous too. She wore a simple cotton dress, no uniform for the first time in the presence of visitors. "He will like you, my love. Alex is a whirlwind, but he has a soft heart. Besides, he's never seen a house this big. He'll probably think you're the prince of a castle." The black SUV appeared around the curve of the driveway, kicking up a small cloud of dust. Mr. Tan's heart, waiting at the foot of the stairs, skipped a beat. He was about to merge two worlds that society said should not touch. The vehicle stopped. The driver opened the back door, and out sprang a small ball of energy. Alex had sun-kissed brown skin from his village, scraped knees, and dark eyes that sparkled with insatiable curiosity. Behind him stepped Grandma, a small woman with a simple shawl and quiet dignity, carrying a wicker basket that surely held homemade food. Alex stood still for a moment, gazing at the immensity of the facade, the columns, the giant windows. Then he looked down and saw Ethan. There was no judgment in the poor boy's eyes, no pity, only an immediate recognition. "Hey," Alex shouted, running towards the ramp without waiting for anyone. "My mum says you have video games. Is it true, or is she lying to make me come?" Ethan blinked, surprised by the frankness. The tension broke like a soap bubble. "It's true, I have the latest console," Ethan replied, and a shy smile appeared on his face. "Awesome, I brought my soccer ball. It's old, but it bounces cool. Do you know how to be a goalkeeper?" Ethan's smile wavered. He looked at his useless legs. "I can't play soccer, I don't walk." Alex shrugged as if the information were irrelevant. "Well, you play with your hands. I'll shoot, and you save. If you have wheels, you're faster, right? Like a transformer." Mr. Tan, observing the scene, felt a lump in his throat. In 30 seconds, that humble boy had normalized his son's disability with a naturalness that no therapist had achieved in years. "Transformé, not invalide. Welcome home, Mr. Tan said, stepping forward to greet Grandma, taking her wrinkled hand with respect. "Madam, it's an honor to have you here." The afternoon turned into something the mansion had never witnessed. A joyful chaos, laughter, shouts, the sound of a ball hitting the perfect lawn. Mr. Tan and Maria watched from the terrace with glasses of calamansi juice in hand. But the moment of truth, the climax that would change everything, arrived at sunset. The children were in the backyard. Alex had improvised a goal between two trees. Ethan was positioned as goalkeeper, moving his chair from side to side with a newfound dexterity, laughing heartily every time he blocked a shot from Alex. "Here comes the cannonball," Alex shouted, preparing a powerful shot. He kicked the ball, but his aim was off. The ball shot at a high angle, hit a branch, and rebounded towards the edge of the empty swimming pool that was being cleaned. The ball wobbled on the edge, about to fall into the concrete bottom. "Damn it!" Ethan shouted in frustration. The ball began to roll towards the abyss of the pool. It was Alex's ball, his only ball, a poor child's treasure. "No!" Ethan, driven by an adrenaline that came not from his brain but from his soul, did something unthinkable. He forgot he couldn't. He forgot the diagnoses. He forgot the pain. He propelled himself with his arms over the armrests of the chair and lunged forward. "Ethan!" Mr. Tan shouted, dropping his glass of calamansi juice, which shattered on the floor. He made to leap over the terrace railing to run. "Wait!" Maria grabbed his arm with an iron grip. Her nails dug into Mr. Tan's skin. "Look at him. Don't go." Mr. Tan looked. Ethan had not fallen face first to the ground. His legs, those wire-thin legs that had trembled in the gym, had reacted by pure instinct. His feet planted themselves on the grass, his knees bent. They trembled violently, threatened to collapse, but they held. Ethan was standing, alone, without bars, without help, standing on the uneven lawn. The boy took a wobbly step, like a newborn, then another. He lunged towards the edge of the pool and caught the ball just before it fell. The effort was brutal. With the ball in his hands, his balance broke, and Ethan fell, sitting on the grass. But he didn't fall like an invalid. He fell like a child playing. The silence that followed was absolute. Alex stood with his mouth open. Mr. Tan felt his heart would burst. Ethan sat on the grass, hugging the old ball to his chest. He looked at his legs. Then he looked towards the terrace, where his father and Maria were frozen. "I caught it!" Ethan shouted. His voice was not of pain, it was of triumph, of a wild and pure triumph. Mr. Tan could no longer restrain himself. He jumped the low railing and ran across the garden. He ran as he had never run for a business deal. He reached his son and dropped to the ground, unconcerned about the grass stains on his linen trousers. "You caught it? You caught it, champion!" Mr. Tan hugged Ethan, kissing his head, his dirty face, his hands. He cried openly, a cry of a redeemed man. "You walked, Ethan. I saw you. You took 2 steps." "It was 3, Dad." Ethan corrected, laughing and crying at the same time. "It was 3. Maria arrived seconds later with Alex and Grandma. She knelt beside them. She said nothing, just placed her hand on Ethan's knees and squeezed, confirming the miracle. Her eyes met Mr. Tan's over the boy's head. In that gaze, there was an electric exchange. They were no longer master and helper. They were 2 parents celebrating life. The social barrier had definitively pulverized under the weight of those 3 steps. "This is just the beginning," Maria whispered, her voice broken with emotion. "Now, hold on tight, Mr. Tan, because this boy is going to want to run." Mr. Tan looked at his son, dirty, sweaty, and happy, surrounded by his new improvised family. He felt a peace that money had never given him. "Let him run," Mr. Tan said. "Let him fly. I'll be here to catch him if he falls." The transformation, the dinner of truth. That night, dinner was not served in the formal dining room with the kilometer-long mahogany table where Mr. Tan usually sat alone at one end and Michelle at the other. That night, dinner was in the kitchen. Maria's grandma had taken command of the industrial stoves, ignoring the digital appliances she didn't understand and using cast iron woks. The aroma of freshly made roti prata, spicy mi goreng, and aromatic spices filled the house, expelling the sterile smell of expensive floor cleaner. They were all seated around the marble island. Mr. Tan, Ethan, Maria, Alex, and Grandma. There were no silver cutlery. They ate with their hands, laughing, passing around chili sauces, all talking at once. Mr. Tan looked around. He wore a simple t-shirt, jeans, and was barefoot. He had a smudge of sauce on his chin that he hadn't bothered to wipe. He felt richer at that moment than at any charity gala in his previous life. Ethan, exhausted by the day's excitement but radiant, was explaining a difficult level of his video game to Alex. Alex listened with his mouth full, nodding in fascination. Maria was serving more iced lemon tea. As she passed by Mr. Tan, he gently brushed her arm to stop her. "Sit down, please," he asked in a low voice. "Stop serving. You don't work for me anymore, remember? You're part of this." Maria looked at him. The warm kitchen light softened her features. There was doubt in her eyes. The ancestral fear of someone who has been a helper all her life and doesn't know how to occupy another place. "It's hard to change habits, Alejandro," she admitted. "Then, let's create new habits." Mr. Tan stood up. The chatter of the children ceased. Grandma stopped eating and looked at him with respect. "Mr. Tan cleared his throat, suddenly feeling shy before this small audience that was now his entire world. "I want to say something," Mr. Tan began. He looked at Ethan. "Today I saw a miracle. And I don't just mean Ethan getting up. I mean that this house was dead. It was a golden coffin. And you," he looked at Maria, then at Alex, "and Grandma, you have breathed life into it." Mr. Tan walked until he stood in front of Maria. She remained still, holding the jug of water against her chest like a shield. "Maria," he said, and his voice took on a grave, serious, but infinitely tender tone. "For years, I was blind. I sought happiness in bank balances and in the approval of people I didn't even like. I brought into this home a woman who was beautiful on the outside and rotten on the inside, because I thought that was what a man of my position deserved." Maria lowered her gaze, blushing. "Sir, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." He gently interrupted her, taking the jug from her hands and placing it on the table so he could take her hands. "You saved my son. You saved me. You taught me that dignity isn't in the brand of clothes, but in the calluses on hands that work out of love." Mr. Tan took a deep breath. He knew what he was about to say would break all the rules of his social circle. He knew his golf club friends would mock him, and he didn't give a damn. "I don't want you to be my employee. I don't want to pay you a salary to take care of my family, because you are my family. I want you to stay. I want Alex to grow up here with Ethan as brothers. I want your grandma to run this kitchen if she wants to. But above all, I want to know if, with time, a broken and foolish man like me could have a chance with a brave woman like you." The silence in the kitchen was thick, sweet. The children looked at each other with wide eyes. Grandma smiled slightly, continuing to eat her roti prata as if she had known this would happen for centuries. Maria looked up. Her dark eyes were filled with tears. She searched Mr. Tan's face for any trace of mockery, of a power play. She found nothing but naked, vulnerable honesty. "Alejandro," she whispered, "I am a simple village woman. I don't know how to use small forks. I don't know how to talk politics. Your friends will laugh at you. Let them laugh." "Mr. Tan said, stepping closer, invading her personal space with tenderness. "Let them laugh until they choke. I will be the happiest man in the world eating roti prata in the kitchen with you, while they are miserable eating caviar with people who don't love them." Mr. Tan raised a hand and caressed her cheek, wiping away a tear that escaped. "Will you stay?" he asked. "Not for the money, not for Ethan, but for us." Maria closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of his hand. She felt the weight of years of solitude and struggle vanish. She opened her eyes and smiled. "I accept," she replied firmly, "but with one condition." Mr. Tan smiled, remembering the first time she had set conditions for him. "Which is, that you learn to make roti prata yourself, because if I'm going to be the lady of the house, I don't plan to cook every day." Mr. Tan's laughter boomed in the kitchen, joining the children's giggles and Grandma's soft chuckle. "Deal." Mr. Tan leaned in and kissed Maria on the forehead. It was a chaste kiss, a sealed promise, a beginning. There was no violin music, only the sound of the rain outside and the warmth of a true family inside. Ethan looked at Alex and nudged him. "I told you my dad was weird," Ethan whispered, smiling. "Adults are weird," Alex concluded, taking another piece of roti prata, "but they cook good." The scene froze there, an imperfect, messy, and wonderfully human tableau. The barefoot millionaire, the helper queen, the boy who walked, and the boy who dreamed, all under the same roof, protected not by security walls, but by loyalty. Mr. Tan's redemption was complete, not because he had recovered his fortune, but because he had learned that the only wealth that cannot be stolen is the one that sits at your table on a Tuesday night. The judgment, time, and true wealth. Scene 1. The last goodbye to the past. Courts. 3 months after the night of the storm, the air in the courtroom was stale, charged with that static electricity that only justice produces when it is about to fall like a gavel. There was no marble to admire here, no luxuries, just gray walls and serious faces. Mr. Tan sat in the front row. Beside him, Maria, not as his employee, but as his partner. Though they hadn't yet formally labeled what they had, she wore a simple, cream-colored pantsuit, and her hands, those hands that had scrubbed floors, now intertwined their fingers with those of the most powerful businessman in the city. She was nervous. Her palms were sweaty, but Mr. Tan squeezed her hand every time she trembled, transmitting a silent strength. In the defendant's dock, Michelle appeared a shadow of her former self. Without her stylists, without her jewels, and without her arrogance, she was a small, embittered woman. The orange jumpsuit of the prison system hung loosely on her, a visual irony of how her own greed had been too big for her. The judge, an elderly man with a hawk-like gaze, struck the gavel. The dry sound resonated like a gunshot, ending the murmurs. "Michelle Montemayor," the judge said in a monotone voice, "you are found guilty of the charges of aggravated child abuse, administration of controlled substances to a minor, and domestic fraud. Michelle raised her head. She sought Mr. Tan's gaze. She wasn't looking for forgiveness. She was looking for validation. She wanted to see pain in him. She wanted to see that he missed her, that his life had fallen apart without her. But what she found destroyed her more than the sentence. Mr. Tan looked at her with absolute calm. There was no hatred, no rage. There was something worse, indifference. He looked at her as one looks at a stranger encountered in traffic years ago. She no longer had power over him. You are sentenced to 15 years of effective imprisonment, without possibility of parole for the first 10, the judge dictated. Michelle screamed. It was a high-pitched, ugly sound. She sprang to her feet, trying to lunge towards the railing that separated her from the public. Guards immediately restrained her. "Alejandro!" she shrieked, her face contorted. "You can't do this to me! I did everything for you so you could have a peaceful home! Tell them to stop! I'm your wife!" Mr. Tan didn't move. Maria instinctively flinched a little, frightened by the violence of the screams. Mr. Tan released Maria's hand for a second, only to put his arm around her shoulders and pull her closer, protecting her. "You are nothing, Michelle, Mr. Tan whispered to himself, so low that only Maria could hear him. "You are only a memory of when I was blind." Michelle was dragged away, kicking and cursing, promising vengeances she could never fulfill. When the double doors closed behind her, the silence that remained in the room was one of purifying peace. Mr. Tan turned to Maria, took her face in his hands. "It's over," he said. "The monster no longer exists. Now life begins." Maria nodded, her eyes moist. "Let's go home, Alejandro. The children get out of school in an hour, and I promised we'd make kue lapis." They left the courthouse, walking slowly under the midday sun, leaving behind the legal darkness to return to domestic light. Scene 2. The Race of Life. 1 year later. The private school sports field was filled with shouting parents, phone cameras recording, and children running in brightly colored jerseys. It was the day of the school Olympics. A year ago, Mr. Tan would have sent his assistant to record the event to watch later or never. Today, he was in the stands in the front row, wearing a t-shirt that read Team Ethan, hand-painted with crooked puffy paint. Beside him, Maria's grandma discreetly handed out homemade curry puffs to other high society mothers who happily accepted them, having forgotten their strict diets in the face of homemade taste. Maria stood, shouting tactical instructions as if she were a professional coach. "Alex, don't run so far ahead, wait for him," she yelled. On the athletics track, the 100-meter dash was about to begin. Alex was in lane 3, agile, fast, a natural gazelle. In lane 4 was Ethan. Ethan was not in a wheelchair. He wore light carbon fiber orthotics on his calves, almost invisible under his sports pants. He had gained weight, muscle, and color. He was no longer the transparent boy of a year ago. He had scars on his soul, yes, but he also had fire in his eyes. "On your marks!" the referee shouted. Mr. Tan held his breath. He felt Maria's hand seek his and squeeze it until it cut off circulation. "Get set! Go!" The gun fired. The children shot forward. Alex started first, fast as the wind, but 10 meters in, he did something no Olympic athlete would do. He braked, looked back. Ethan had a slow start. His legs still didn't respond with lightning speed, but they responded. He ran, with an uneven trot, limping slightly, swinging his arms forcefully to compensate for balance. He was last, far behind the main group. The crowd fell silent. It was an uncomfortable moment for many to see the crippled child trying to compete. But then Ethan stumbled. It was at 30 meters. His left foot caught. He fell to his knees on the red clay track. The thud was heard even in the stands. "Ethan, Mr. Tan shouted, leaping to his feet, ready to invade the track again. Maria stopped him, this time not with force, but with a soft voice. "Wait, look at him." On the track, Ethan did not cry. He gritted his teeth. His knees were scraped, bleeding a little. He could have stayed there. He could have waited for paramedics to come with a stretcher, resuming his role as a victim. But Ethan looked up and saw Alex. Alex had not continued running. Alex had returned and was standing 2 meters from him, extending his hand. "Get up, brother!" Alex shouted. "We haven't crossed the finish line yet." Ethan hit the ground with rage, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and, refusing Alex's hand, propelled himself up. He stood, wobbling, dirty, hurt, but standing. "I can do it!" Ethan shouted, and he started running again. He didn't win the race. He came in last, almost a minute after the winner. But when Ethan crossed the finish line, with Alex running beside him without passing him, the stadium erupted. It wasn't applause of pity. It was a deafening, genuine, visceral ovation. The wealthy parents, the teachers, the other children, everyone was on their feet. Mr. Tan cried unashamedly, tears soaking his Team Ethan t-shirt. He looked at his son, who raised his arms to the sky as if he had won world gold. At that moment, Mr. Tan understood that success was not about coming in first. Success was having the strength to get up when everyone expected you to stay on the ground. Maria hugged him around the waist, hiding her own emotion against his chest. "We did it, Alejandro," she sobbed. "We did it." "No," he corrected, kissing her hair. "He did it. We just gave him the shoes." Scene 3. The Bougainvillea Garden. The closure. That afternoon, at sunset, the mansion was quiet. The race celebration party had ended, a pizza and video game party that left the living room a happy mess. Mr. Tan walked out to the garden. The same garden where everything had begun. The Bougainvillea was still there, vibrant, pink, silent witnesses to tragedy and resurrection. But the air no longer felt heavy. Maria was sitting on a stone bench reading a book. She had started taking night classes to finish her secondary education, something Mr. Tan encouraged with disproportionate pride. He approached and sat beside her. She closed the book and smiled at him. A smile that reached her eyes, free of shadows. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Mr. Tan looked towards the house. Through the illuminated kitchen window, Grandma could be seen teaching Ethan and Alex how to knead dough for Prada. Ethan was standing, leaning against the table, laughing as Alex covered his face with flour. "I'm thinking that I almost lost everything," Mr. Tan said. "If you hadn't screamed that day, if you hadn't had the courage to confront me, I would still be a rich and miserable man, married to a lie, with a sedated son in a dark room." Mr. Tan slid off the bench and knelt on the earth, ignoring his good trousers. Maria brought her hands to her mouth, surprised. "Alejandro, get up. You'll get dirty." "I don't care," he said, taking her hands. "Maria, I don't have a diamond ring right now. I could buy one tomorrow, the biggest in the jewelry store, but I feel like that's not you. That's the old Alejandro." He reached into his pocket and pulled something out. It wasn't a jewel. It was the yellow rubber glove, the same glove he had contemptuously torn off her on the day of the conflict, and that he had retrieved from the trash that same night, as a reminder of his mistake. He had kept it all this time. Maria looked at the old, wrinkled glove, and then at Mr. Tan. She understood the symbol. She understood that he was offering her his eternal repentance and his absolute devotion. "This glove represents the moment I almost destroyed my life and the moment you saved it," Mr. Tan said, his voice trembling. "I want you to marry me, Maria. Not for you to be the lady of the house, because you already are, but for you to be my partner, my equal, my compass. I want my children because Alex is already my son too, to see that true love doesn't look at social classes, or pasts, or bank accounts." The silence in the kitchen was thick, sweet. The children looked at each other with wide eyes. Grandma smiled slightly, still eating her roti prata as if she had known this would happen centuries ago. Maria looked up. Her dark eyes were filled with tears. She searched Mr. Tan's face for any trace of mockery, of a power play. She found nothing but naked, vulnerable honesty. "Alejandro," she whispered, "I am a village woman. I don't know how to use small forks. I don't know how to talk politics. Your friends will laugh at you." "Let them laugh," Mr. Tan said, taking another step closer, delicately invading her personal space. "Let them laugh until they choke. I will be the happiest man in the world, having prata in the kitchen with you, while they are miserable eating caviar with people who don't love them." "Mr." Tan raised a hand and caressed her cheek, wiping away an escaping tear. "Will you stay?" he asked. "Not for the money, not for Ethan, but for us." Maria closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of his hand. She felt the weight of years of solitude and struggle vanish. She opened her eyes and smiled. "I accept," she said firmly, "but with one condition." Mr. Tan smiled, remembering the first time she set conditions for him. "What is it?" "That you learn to make prata yourself, because if I'm going to be the lady of the house, I don't intend to cook every day." Mr. Tan's laughter echoed in the kitchen, joining the children's giggles and Grandma's soft chuckle. "Deal." Mr. Tan leaned in and kissed Maria on the forehead. It was a chaste kiss, a sealed promise, a beginning. There was no violin music, only the sound of the rain outside and the warmth of a true family inside. Ethan looked at Alex and nudged him. "I told you my dad was weird," Ethan whispered, smiling. "Adults are weird," Alex concluded, taking another piece of roti prata, "but they cook good." The scene froze there, an imperfect, messy, and wonderfully human tableau. The barefoot millionaire, the helper queen, the boy who walked, and the boy who dreamed, all under the same roof, protected not by security walls, but by loyalty. Mr. Tan's redemption was complete, not because he had recovered his fortune, but because he had learned that the only wealth that cannot be stolen is the one that sits at your table on a Tuesday night. Epilogue. The camera slowly pulls away from the couple kissing in the garden. It rises over the flower-covered walls, passes over the mansion's roof, and ascends into the star-filled sky. The house, which at the beginning of the story was a cold monument to vanity, now shines with warm light from all its windows. Laughter, old radio music, and the barking of a new dog they just adopted can be heard. On the black screen, before the credits, a simple phrase appears. Blood makes you kin, but loyalty makes you family.